Salvete sodales. So let's talk about virtual assessment again. And if you've been following this video series, you may have noticed something. You may have noticed that this is the first time that I seem to have reused a theme for a presentation. And I did. It is the first time that I reused a theme for a presentation. And there's a reason for that. So today's topic, based on a bunch of things that a bunch of people have been saying, a bunch of things that I've noticed, just thinking about my own journey, is the topic of too much information. And when I was thinking about too much information, I thought about two things that I love, but I don't actually need a whole lot of information about. One of them is coffee. I know what I like, and I know what I don't like. And I don't really care. This is terrible. I don't care where the beans were grown. I don't care what kind of beans they were. I do care that the person who grew the beans ideally was like properly compensated and paid fairly for their work. That's important to me. But I don't care where or what kind of soil or a bunch of other things that you're supposed to care about if you're a coffee snob, right? And the other thing that I love, a lot of people don't know this, is that I really like photography. And when I was 13, I really wanted to get serious about it. This is back in the days of film cameras and dark rooms. And I realized pretty quickly that there was so much information out there that it was too much for me. And I didn't get to really explore my interest in photography until I was in my 30s and digital cameras existed, and then cameras on your phone existed, and then all of a sudden you could just take a picture. You could just take a snapshot. And you didn't have to interrupt your life, and you didn't have to spend a whole lot of time waiting for it to get developed. You didn't have to take it to the drugstore or the photo processing store and come back 2 days later when they called. You could just take pictures. And if you didn't like one picture, you could delete it. And you could say, oh, that one didn't turn out at all. I see why. And then you could take action in the moment. You may be starting to see the connections with assessment in a virtual and remote and hybrid world here. Because too much information is not necessarily a good thing. So I want to make a couple of connections, and I want to keep this video pretty short because I realize some people are looking at that beautiful picture. I wish I had taken it. That beautiful picture of that perfectly made, oh, that cup. But I want to make some connections. I want us to think about what your assessment stories tell you. Mine, the one that I told you guys about my ninth grade English teacher and the test on Odysseus, the Complete Adventures, I didn't get the score back for days. By the time that I got it back, we had moved on to the next unit. I saw the number. I saw what questions I had missed. I knew that I had not known the name of Odysseus' dog, so I mean, that was fair game, right? But it wasn't helpful to me. We didn't have any other tests like that all year, so I don't think it was really helpful to him. He knew we didn't know very much about Odysseus, the Complete Adventures, but he didn't know why. He didn't know, we didn't know how to get better. He didn't know how to make it better. And yet, you could take that same story and think, well, maybe that's how assessments are supposed to be. Maybe it's supposed to be a mystery. Maybe I'm not supposed to get the scores back in time to do anything about that. And when you think about how schools work, that's typically true, right? What do you want your assessments to tell you? And what did you want your assessments to tell you in old normal times? I wanted to know how my students were doing with what we'd been learning. I wanted to know if they, could read Latin, for example. I wanted to know if they had a handle on whatever the new topics were that we'd been working on. But did this ever happen to you? You gave some kind of a test or a quiz. There's a stack of papers. I would always put a binder clip around that stack of papers, and I would put that stack of papers in my to be graded folder. And I would intend to grade them during my prep period that day or right after school. Well, you know the rest of the story, right? You get home with the stack of papers, either or else you just leave them at school because you know that you're not going to get to them. A day goes by. A couple days go by. A student raises their hand and says, "Did you grade our tests from last Tuesday?" And with a sickening realization, you realize that no, I didn't grade our tests from last Tuesday. I don't ever want to grade our tests from last Tuesday, right? That's so far back in the past now that whatever information I would have gotten from that assessment is just completely useless. And yet, you got to grade it, right? And you got to give them back. You got to talk about them at some point. And so teachers get trapped in this story, and students get trapped in this story. And nobody actually gets the results that they want from an assessment cycle like that. What if you discover nobody understood that question 18, find a dative plural noun in line such and so of the passage? Everybody got that wrong. Uh-oh. What does that mean? Well, on the day after the test, we could have figured out what that meant, but a week and a half later, are they still having problems with that? And I picked that grammatical example not necessarily because all of you guys are going to have questions like that, but just because it's a question, with a simple answer. And it's a question that if, you're teaching recognition of grammatical endings, you'd be wanting to say, I wonder why. And you might look at the question, every single student had picked the other word in that line that had a potentially dative plural ending, but it just happened to be an ablative plural noun. And you say, oh, we need to work on how you can tell. Or maybe they all picked a dative singular noun. Or maybe they picked a verb, and then we've got other issues going on, right? But you don't know because you waited a week and a half and they can't tell you anymore, right? Maybe the problem's already been resolved. Maybe it hasn't. But what if? What if an assessment is a snapshot of performance? What if it doesn't have to be like me, age 13, holding this 35 millimeter camera that I had asked my parents for and they had given me for like combined Christmas and birthday present. And I loved that thing. But how was I going to get good at being a photographer when I'd have to take 24 pictures and then carefully remove the film, roll it back up, take it down to the photo processing store, wait until it was prepared, discover that I had made the same error 24 times? What if it doesn't have to be like that? What if in an age of remote and hybrid learning, we can come up with assessment structures that are more like a snapshot of performance? What if they don't take long to make and they don't take long to grade and they give us information that we and our students can actually use to improve? Would that change everything? I wish I had a simple answer, but I bet that something like that, a story like that, where assessment is a snapshot, I bet that would change your process in some significant ways. And I bet you'd feel a lot less stress and a lot less of that awful sinking feeling of, I know somebody's going to ask if I graded those tests, I just want them to disappear. I wish I had a single perfect solution, but you guys know me well enough to know that I firmly believe that perfect for one situation could be perfectly awful for somewhere else. So, if you're thinking, I don't know how to get there from here, but I see that that's where I want to go, let's talk. Let's continue the conversation. We can continue it in the comments here. You can get in touch and we can have a free, quick session, or we could talk about a paid coaching session if that's what you need. Because what's important is that snapshot. Sometimes it takes a while to learn how to take snapshots, but the only way to get there is to start. And if you think about what we talked about last week with the Knuffen model, if you think about the fact that these are complex and chaotic times, the only way to find what works is to try something and then just keep trying until you find something else that works and works. So I hope it's a good Monday for everybody if you're watching this on the day it's posted. I hope it's a good day in your world no matter what day you watch this. I hope you'll get in touch because this work is important. You guys are important. And it's much, much easier and better not to try to do this work alone. So until we see each other again, until tomorrow, let's keep the conversation going. And Walete Sodales, I'll see you real soon.